Imagine you're out one night with your family or friends and you order a beautiful plate of sushi at your favorite restaurant. Maybe you can be thinking about the number of calories that this food will give your body, but regarding the side effects in your health is not something that you're thinking of. Aren't we right? Well, you'll now learn that you should. Keep watching. You have to start thinking about this, or you could end up like a Chinese man, which in 2014 learned his lesson in a tough way. He was just like any other, having his favorite dish, and it was awesome. But what came next was a lot of odd symptoms and adverse effects. He had to rush to the emergency room, and after doctors made x-rays, this guy decided never to eat out again. Some of the awful side effects were extreme, and hard stomach aches and annoying itchy skins. The man didn't want to say his name, and he preferred to remain anonymous. He went to the doctor right away. The problem was hard and very extreme. The doctors admitted him into emergency in a second at Guangzhou No. 8 People's Hospital in Guangdong Province. The first thing they did was ask him about the symptoms. The answers alarmed them, but then the man told them about his eating habits. The doctors knew precisely the magnitude of the problem that they were dealing with. They decided to take some x-rays, and the results are still something that haunts them to this day. The internal structures were in complete order, is not something out of the layout of the organs and bones, but there was something odd. A lot of little white dashes were shown on the x-ray, and this alone confirmed the fear of the team of doctors. Dr. Yin was the doctor in charge of telling the patient about the confirmation of his most significant nightmare. All those little white dashes were worms. This man had so many worms inside his body. Now the problem was to know how all the worms got into him. They started digging into his life and found out that the man's favorite food was sushi or sashimi. If you've been living under a rock until now, sushi and sashimi are raw fish. Eating sushi is fantastic, but at the same time it can lead to horrible parasitic infections. Could this be the reason for all those worms? Well, it seemed that it was. According to Dr. Yin, if you consume parasite-infested food, you're letting in eggs that make their way into the digestive system. The eggs will then, well, hatch, and the larva will spread throughout all your body using your blood as a free bus. Oh my God, this is horrible. The image of this man's infected x-rays went viral real quick, spreading through Europe and then to America. People started to freak out because they didn't want to stop eating sushi. This was when some theories began to form. Some of the parts of the story didn't add up. First, according to the first article that covered the news, the man had cystocirrhosis. This made some readers think twice before canceling that sushi takeout. It seems that cystocirrhosis is an infection that's derived from a parasite that's only found in raw pork. So why are they blaming it on the delicious sushi? It just didn't make sense. Then the famous fact checkers at Snopes.com started to dig into the story, and they came up with a story of another Chinese man that also had a parasitic infection and that's suspiciously very similar to the one they were reading. The case was published by Mingpin Lin, Yanli Chen, and Wenshen Zheng in the British Medical Journal, and it featured a 74-year-old man that was hospitalized for a sudden gait disturbance, memory loss, and disturbance of consciousness. The man was also an avid sushi and sashimi fan, and he told this to the doctors at one point. He has a unique appetite. He also liked eating large amounts of raw beef and pork. Like the doctors from the new case, they made a set of x-rays. Did you guess? The man's x-rays showed very similar patterns, resembling the new x-rays of the new Chinese man. The difference is that according to the report, what the x-ray shows were not worms, but what they thought about it was not a better conclusion. The brain CAT scan, brain MRI, abdominal CAT scan, and plain x-rays had a characteristic starry sky appearance, revealing calcified foci in muscle. The report's authors wrote, "So what were calcified foci?" It's evident that the x-rays and CAT scans showed what turned out to be calcified cysts, and they were side effects of huge parasitic infections in both cases. According to the team at Snopes, the problem of the first case that they looked into was regarding translation, and the person thought they were talking about raw fish when they were talking about raw pork. Of course, this doesn't mean you can start eating raw fish without any precautions. There was a third case that was reported by BBC on another medical journal in 2017. This one was about a man who was 32 years old and lived in Lisbon, Portugal. Like both previous men, he ended up in the emergency room with horrible stomach pains. The team did not take any time coming up with the diagnosis. They said it was anisiciasis, a parasitic infection that's caused by the consumption of the raw fish. Sure enough, doctors found the larvae of a worm-like parasite firmly attached to an area of swollen gut lining, the BBC wrote. Most of the cases of anisiciasis that were reported were made in Japan, and that's not a surprise. The consumption of raw fish and sashimi in Japan is massive. However, it's been increasingly recognized in Western countries, pointed out the report's authors. It can be pork or it can be fish. The only truth that we can come up with from all these cases is that you should be very careful while eating raw meat. Make sure that it's been properly treated. If not, you could end up with your very own wormy x-ray very soon.